Okay, so I'm going to do a quick walkthrough of the work that's been done by MD&D Construction here. Just to give some backstory on this kitchen project and garage project, there we agreed in, I believe, April of last year that this project would take about a month. Should be done by June of 2024. It's now January 13th of 2025. And this is where we're at. So I'm just going to go through some of the problems I've noticed since getting this work done and just sort of talk about my experience here. So we're going to start in the kitchen. First off, this butcher block counter was supposed to be really nice. We were really looking forward to this. We paid, I guess, kind of a premium for it. But as you can see here already, if it'll show, you can kind of see the lines that were inputted or imprinted just by a hot pad being set on here. So whatever finish they used clearly didn't work. And as we go down here, you can see this is from setting a towel on it after pulling a bowl out of a microwave. So the microwave was enough to, even with a towel under it, to damage the countertops. This stuff won't come off unless we sand it. The molding around the sink already almost completely peeled off, even though they're just now finishing the work. And this stuff, I think they finished in August of last year. The caulking all the way around the back has completely peeled off, causing water to get back in there. You can see it's cracked all the way around. They took the original woodwork because the guy had never done counters before. This was disclosed to me. One of the employees that he hired had never done counters before. So he took the 110-year-old door frame and cut into it to put some butcher block in there. I tried to fix that by backfilling in here with some putty. You can see how that looks. They lost the original board when they were working around the trim, so they replaced it with a nice piece of pine or some shit from Home Depot. Doesn't exactly match the other side and doesn't match the colors. They put this shitty piece of trim here, which rocks back and forth and has a pretty big gap underneath where you can see stuff's already getting caught under there. Not very water resistant, and you can almost fit fingertips underneath the other side. This trim, unpainted. You can already see it's not even staying on the wall. This section of floor had a cutout in it underneath originally. And when they first put the flooring back on, that had a giant divot under it. It's still a little squishy when you step there. I don't know if you can see the water moving yeah, you can see it pretty clearly because that's just floating above the surface of the underlayment. They didn't finish the trim. They didn't stain it or anything like that. Didn't even bother to wrap it all the way around into the door frames. Under here, it's just kind of cut off at jagged angles, hanging there. Different length boards. The trim goes all the way around, but doesn't exactly match the other trim. They did get at least this piece on here and then this little lip to sort of finish it out in some spots. But that's mainly just to cover the board that's underneath, because prior to that they'd left it hanging out and I asked them to fix that. So this current situation is the result of me spending 6 or 7 iterations of getting him to send guys out again and again and again to get to this state. Yeah, the counters, because they're so much higher because the butcher block's thick, you can see that where the cabinet comes in here, it's just a drop off now. It's like a couple inches of depth there. Not a huge deal on that, but not exactly what I was looking for. And as we go out here, they didn't include any sort of cover on this side. This side, I don't know if you have to do a cover on something like that, but they didn't, so just pointing that out for the record. Then coming out to the garage, you can see they did get the roof on there. I was pretty happy with that. They got the gutters back up, although they're a little crooked. But, you know, they should slope down slightly from one end to the other. These sort of look like they bow in the middle. The siding around the side, you can see they put that pressure treated lumber around and set it on the footer. It's not exactly square on the footer, but it's pretty good on this side. Some of my concerns here, though, this just hangs over nothing, so when you step on that, it bends down. That's not pleasant, and you can see it's not exactly square or level with the rest of the house. The gap there causes that to be raised up a little bit. You know, it's a 110-year-old building, so I wasn't being too nitpicky. We just needed to get the paint and the door back on there. But they did end up doing a lot of damage to the lower siding here, so after they replaced that, I had to come back there and paint it because they weren't going to paint it a third time because they'd already sent painters out here a couple times. But some of my main concerns are when they backfilled this area, this is all soft clay or light dirt. And since this latest rainstorm, that footer wall is pushed out some. I don't know how much, but it looks visibly pushed out. And you can see the latest project they had to do, they just brought this concrete out here. I don't know how dry it is. Looks pretty dry. They brought this concrete out here and poured like 14 bags of concrete to bolster this corner because they had destroyed the footer on this end, or it crumbled apart. I can't say they destroyed the footer, but their job was to pull this wall back in. So as part of their process, they lined this wall up and then pulled it in section by section, unbolting it from the bottom and then nailing it back into the footer board. But when it came to this corner piece right here, they didn't. So they pulled the whole wall in, but then I don't know if you can quite tell, but it bows out right here on this corner. And the reason it's doing that, I'll show you once I go inside, is because they didn't actually pull this corner in. They just pulled the rest of the wall so that the wall was straight and then left this corner kicked out like this. So after they put these doors on, which in our invoice it did say he was going to build some custom doors, and for the record he did tell me in May of last year, May 21st of last year, that the doors were in the shop and it would be 4 to 6 weeks before they were complete. That was a lie. He told me several times that the doors were in the shop or being worked on, or just generally being, yeah, that he was on it. But these doors ended up being built in the last month by one of his guys in his garage, which, you know, they look fairly good. They looked a lot better prior to the house sinking, because that's exactly what happened. It rained a shit ton. This house settled, this building, the structure settled, this corner slid out a little bit, and the whole weight of the building was resting on these doors. So let me come around the other side here. It's been quite a process. I mean, we're talking 8 months for a 1 month project. The kitchen took over 5 weeks just in and of itself before I finally gave up and got over that. They did get this new door on there, so we paid for that. It's relatively secure. One problem I have with it is when it swings open, it hits this board right here, and when it hits that board right there, it rips this foam off. So you can see this foam's just like hanging there. So anytime that door opens, that's a problem. I've also noticed this. They didn't reattach the light switch here. Now it's shooting sparks, actually, whenever I try to turn it on. It didn't do that before. Electrical panel has been pulled apart. I can't seem to get it back together. The lights don't work, but to be fair, the lights didn't really work before. I think the ballasts were out, but now I'm scared to even touch this thing. In here, I know I've got it covered right now, and it's probably not worth it for the video, but there's some wetness that forms down on the bottom of this wall. Over on this wall, you can see the wetness that's forming on the inside of the building right there. I don't know what exactly is causing that, but it didn't used to do that. Instead of, when they were working on this was all this cedar material, this lap cedar that we had in here originally. But when they installed the door, they left it all open, and they were going to leave it like that. And so I asked them to cover it back up and get some of this board stuff to do so. And they got this shitty MDF. And they did it there. And they did it up there. And I know I'm ignoring that one. That one was empty before, so I'm not holding them accountable for that. But they did cover it up with MDF up there as well. I think there's another section somewhere back there where they did the same thing. So over here, it looks like they added a new board. Over here, this was and is clearly floating now. Looks like they just stuffed a block under there and then attached this board. This board wasn't on here last time I was out here. So they, as you can see by the angle of it, hopefully on a camera, they cut it at an angle and they just stretched this whole wall out to make this longer and support this. Because when I came out here, they finished this about a week or two ago. I want to say about a week and a half ago. And it was fine until the rain, and then I tried to come out here and the door was completely wedged shut. So they came out here and did this work to raise that corner and pour the concrete underneath and get this so the doors would open. But as you can see now, it's like bulging inward. There's a massive gap, and as you can see just by looking at this, you notice I can see the inside edge of this and this. That's because they're both angled in on both sides. It's not sitting square at the top anymore. So this door work leaves this gigantic gap, and there's not really shit we can do about that other than recut the whole doors and have them rebuild them. I mean, these handles were level when they installed that, but that should just show you how deep of a sink this has had since they decided this method of resolution for this. So they also added this wheel caster to help roll the door out, because while he was working on the door, it clearly sagged. So while he was out here the last couple days, he had this big door open and it sagged like I figured it would. David had told me that there would be a single hinge that they would do down the side to support the weight of this door, and then told me, well, that was too cost prohibitive, so we didn't do that, and he just put the original hinges back on it. So that's the state we're in. I'm not even sure if this is like structurally sound anymore. Let me try to get the light out of there. They added that board up there. And to be fair, they did this rafter work. Rafter work looks good. I mean, the roof looked pretty good. There's one other problem on the roof I wanted to point out. That's apparently not much of a problem, but just kind of a minor annoyance for me, given everything we've been through. If we come around on this side and take a look up there, don't quite know if it'll show up on camera. Yeah, it's very hard to see, but right here is a little mountain right there in the roof, and it bulges. You can kind of see the slope on the tiles there, how it changes from top to bottom and in the middle, and that's because somehow they managed to leave a giant lump or didn't put a board underneath or something to that effect. So there's that. This board looks like it's beginning to separate now, and that might be because of all the torquing they did to the building itself. But I had to ask him to do this flashing along here because there was no flashing. There was just the concrete hanging out, and I was worried. I mean, ultimately, I'm still worried that with the footer, you know, it's probably 5 or 6 inches wide, and there's probably 4.5 inches of it hanging out the side here. I mean, just look at how much is hanging out, plus under the under that lip that's hiding it. It's basically not sitting on anything, and they cut a lot of corners to try to get this done for the $25,000 or $24,000 they quoted us. And that was the final problem with this build, was when it came time to pay, he says, oh, well, the concrete costs $1,500 more, so it'll be $1,500 extra. And I said, well, do you have an invoice for that? And he's like, oh, I don't. No, sorry, it was just $5,000 for the concrete. And so I said, okay, well, bring me an invoice, get an invoice from the company. And he brings by an invoice that he's created saying, oh, look, it's $1,500 more, which doesn't really tell me shit about what the company charged him. So between the lies about what was being done, when it was being done, the inconsistencies between what we agreed upon and what is here, you know, because things like new custom door to me don't mean slap together some 2x4s in your garage, paint it, and stick it up crooked in somebody's house. I'm also concerned just about the weather sealing, because if we come around here, I don't think I've come around here yet to show you, that top gap is pretty huge. So there wasn't much of a gap when they first did it, but now you can see there's a pretty significant swing in how much space is available at the top of that. And then here you can see it's clearly bowed in, assuming this line is straight, which it is. Yeah, the garage door won't even sit flat anymore. It's bowed in because of whatever they've done. So I'm scared to even open it at this point. I'm worried about the condition and the stability of this. Like, actually, I can't open it right now because I got the latch on there, but yeah, this is just kind of the quality of work we got, you know, and I guess you get what you pay for. The other quote we got to get this job done was $67,000. This guy quoted us $24,000. Wow, there's quite a gap there, because you can see the door itself sticks out way further than the actual frame on the inside. Yeah, but anyway, it was about a third the cost of what we were quoted by other people, and I guess this is what you get. But I don't know if this is something I should be challenging. Maybe I should be taking him to court. I mean, because we're also in this situation where he has closed his business at this point. He's gone out of business. Somebody else sued him for a different project while all this was going on, and he had to pay them some amount of a lawsuit, and he closed his business, or I think is closing his business. I don't know how much of his bond is even left. He only had a $25,000 bond, which was fine for my project until somebody else sued him. Now I don't know how that stuff works. But ultimately, like, look, okay, it's a 110-year-old house. We got this new driveway out of the deal. They did do this. I mean, this thing was completely wrecked. They redid the asphalt right here. So that was done. You know, I'm just a little upset about some of the quality of this work, but at the same time, given that this house is so old, and if you'd seen the original garage doors, they were basically non-existent. They were completely shredded and rotted and fallen apart. I don't think it's worth coming after him for, but I want to know what you think. So you tell me, should I pursue this contractor? Should I cut my losses? I think the odds of me getting paid are pretty much nil, and him finishing the work would be about nothing. So let me know.